This is just a general story of my diagnosis from the start, really, because I didn't share it at the beginning. It took me quite a while to become a sharer, and then I became an oversharer. So as I thought, I might as well just summarise from the beginning, and even if that helps one person check a lump or a bump or a pain or something, then that's good enough. So yeah, I just really don't feel up to doing this, but it needs to be done. So yeah, if you could share it, spread the word, tell people what sarcoma is, literally anything, I'd be so grateful, because I just want people to know what it is, and I want people to get diagnosed earlier so that they survive longer, or just survive in general, and don't have to go through half of what I have, because it has truly been the most horrific experience of my life. But I have been through hell and back, so potentially nothing will faze me now. So most people that follow me on Instagram, because I share everything on there, will know that it is terminal, it is incurable, confusingly, but it is treatable. So at the moment I can be treated for what I've got, but they'll never get rid of it completely. So they will treat it as in try and control it and keep it stable, but they will never confidently get me cancer free. It will kill me eventually. It is one of those things that I still don't quite believe, because I don't actually know for sure, and I feel bad telling everybody this because I don't actually know for sure if I'm going to die, but it's just what I've been told by the doctors. So, you know, but then you hear of people all the time that, well, they were given 3 weeks to live and they cured themselves of this, that and the other, and you know, I am doing everything I can, believe me, to keep myself stable. At least I'm not even trying to cure myself at this point, I'm just trying to prolong my life. So I've kind of reached the point in my treatment where I'm on my last chemo option, which is the 4th option now. I've had radiotherapy. It's all in my previous blogs and vlogs. If you want to know like what I've gone through, that's the best way to catch up. But yeah, I specifically now had to choose, do I want to control pain and come off all my treatment and potentially die, or do I want to fight through the pain and keep going with my treatment and hope that that in turn makes me better, makes me less in pain? It sounds ridiculous, but that is literally the life choice I've got at the moment. People tell me all the time like, oh, chemo's going to kill you before cancer does. Well, yeah, probably, but if I come off chemo, the cancer's going to kill me anyway. So obviously I'm going to go with the doctors, I'm going to trust them. It's all so controversial and I don't want to talk about it, but it's Sarcoma Awareness Week, or actually I think it might be all month, I don't know, but I won't go on about it all month. Sarcoma is a really rare and aggressive cancer of the tissues, muscles, it can be in the bone, and it's so rare. 75% of the population apparently don't know what it is, and I was one of those people, obviously, until I was diagnosed. So for me, the whole sarcoma journey, if you like, or battle or whatever, began in 2017. So I had just finished my 2nd year at uni in Nottingham. I was training to be a primary school teacher, and my earliest memory of all of these symptoms, because obviously it's a bit of a blur at the time because you don't know it's happening, my earliest signs were probably like June time, when I was moving out of my house in 2nd year to come home. I couldn't lift anything up, and I thought, because of my course you have to take like your laptop, 5 folders, loads of food, like just you carrying so much stuff into uni every day on the bus. I just thought, oh god, I've really overdone it, I've pulled a muscle, or do you know what I mean? Like I didn't know what it was, but I just knew I had a really bad backache. I just remember moaning about a bad back for so long, and everyone being like, I don't know what to suggest, like you must have pulled a muscle, maybe you need a massage, maybe you've got a slipped disc, like it could literally be anything at this point. And I hadn't done any Googling, because I don't know about everybody, but I've never associated pain and cancer together. I thought to have cancer, I thought you would have to be really poorly. So the poorly that I was when I started my treatment is what I thought cancer did to you, but it's not at all. That's what the treatment does to you. So the cancer doesn't necessarily make you that poorly. So really, I didn't have any signs that I was thinking, oh my god, I think I've got cancer. Like we all go onto Google and self-diagnose, but I genuinely hadn't. that wasn't even the forefront of my mind. I did think, right, okay, like whatever it is, I just want to know now, because if it's a slip disc or if it's sciatica or arthritis, like anything, whatever it is, I don't care. I just want an answer and I want to get out of pain. So I had a sports massage, which made it like 300 times worse. Obviously, it's gonna. I went to my GP, but I went to him about something else. I think I don't know. And literally, as I was putting my jacket on to leave, I said, oh, by the way, I don't know, like, you know, because I'm only 21, I don't know how relevant this is going to be to anything, but I've got a really bad backache. To the point I can't even lift the handbrake up in my car because the shooting in my back is awful. If I sneezed, I'd collapse because of the pain. And I just sort of like threw it in there as I was leaving, and he was like, oh, that's a bit weird at your age. Like, I wouldn't expect general wear and tear or like back pain. So he had me do like some random exercises and like stretches, and he was like, oh, you look pretty like mobile, but I can see that it's causing you pain. If the pain gets worse, or if it spreads somewhere else or anything like that, come straight back. I went home. I can't remember the time scale that this happened on, but over the next few weeks or days or whatever, however long it was, I was in agony, not just with my back, but it had now spread to my right leg. So the pain, it was just unbelievable. It was like, I can't even describe the pain. I literally can't. It felt like growing pains, but like on a really severe scale. So it wasn't like burning or tingling or like sore or anything or pressure. It was literally like the biggest ache, but it was just took over my whole body. Like, I remember getting out of bed one night to go to the toilet, and I got to the end of my bed and I could not straighten my back. My back was literally bent over at a 90-degree angle, and I just could not straighten up. So I just fell to the floor, and I just remember crying, and I was shouting at my mum, like, Mum, I can't get up, like, what is happening? And obviously nobody knew what was going on. They were like, this is ridiculous. After it had spread to my leg, I went back to my doctor, because that's what he told me to do, and he was really concerned, and he sent me for an MRI scan. Thank God he did, basically, because once in his whole career, in his like 30, 40 years, however long of being a doctor, he's seen this rhabdomyosarcoma once in his whole career. He'd seen it through the back pain and the leg pain, so he recognised it. But had he not have had that patient before, I don't think he would have caught it at all when he did, because we only just caught it in time anyway, really. No obvious symptoms that were screaming out for him to look for. I went for my MRI scan. The results obviously came back abnormal, but what they were looking at was there's a curve in my spine, and it's literally like probably only that amount curved. So he referred me to a spine specialist up in Leicester, who's amazing. He was really nice. You know, he saw us really quickly, and he looked at it and he was like, yeah, there is a curve, but I'm not concerned about that, because you might have always had that. I don't think you've damaged it. I don't think you've got a new curve, and the curve has to be like a certain amount of degrees before it becomes a problem. The degree of my curve wasn't overly concerning, so he said, I don't think we found the problem. Like, at this point I was in a wheelchair, like it was ridiculous. So obviously it was very frustrating, but I don't really push at things like that, because I genuinely just thought, oh well, they have scanned it, they've looked at it, like if there was something wrong they would know. But then he basically said the thing that concerned him on the scan was that there was like tiny little speckles of what they call shading. Basically your spine and like all your muscles and your tissues and everything on a scan are like solid grey, and then I think they're grey or they're black, and then basically if it's cancerous, it's like a really faded out grey, so it's not actually really obvious. I thought cancer on a scan would be like, boom, like you've got cancer and it's like all down here, like you'd think it would jump out at you. It does not. Like, I don't know how they find it in some people. So he passed me on to haematology, which is blood specialist, because he thought, right, this is something a little bit more serious, this is not my area. He looked through all my scans, did some more tests. Then I had a CT scan which showed a raised lymph node in my left arm. And basically lymph nodes are inflamed when there's an infection or there's a problem. They work overtime, so then they swell up, and that's a symptom of cancer because it's fighting something. I didn't even know about that lump. I couldn't feel it. I could once they found it on the scan. He showed me where it was and I was like, oh my God, yeah, that is actually quite a big lump. But I never would have known about it, probably until the point where it started hurting, which might have been too late, I don't know. Then I had a biopsy on that, and really a biopsy is the only way they can confirm a sarcoma, because it doesn't show up in your blood. You can have indications on the scan, you can see, but it won't actually tell you what type it is until it's under the microscope and they've like fully assessed the cell and everything. I was sent home on a lot of pain relief. Really weirdly, one morning I was like, do you know what, I'm not going to go to work today. I don't feel very well, because I've still been going to work at this point. My mum had the day off, just coincidentally as well, and I literally got back in bed at 9 in the morning and my phone rang, and it was the person from Leicester that had done the biopsy, and this is literally like days later. It could have even been the next day, I'm not sure. And he just sort of said, are you at home, are you with family, like, can I talk to your mum? I mean, at this point I was 21, so that was weird, but when it comes to cancer, I don't know if that is unreasonable. I think, you know, he wanted to make sure I wasn't on my own. He obviously knew something I didn't. I didn't really click on at this point. I was just like, yeah, my mum's here, like, I'll put her on now. And then, yeah, I just watched her break down. I passed the phone over to her and she was just getting ready and she just broke down. And obviously I was sat there like, not a clue what was happening. Yeah, she was breaking down and I was literally like, oh my God, what is happening? Tell me, like, what have I got? Am I gonna die? And she hung up the phone and she said, look, they've given us 3 possibilities. It's definitely cancer. It's either leukemia, lymphoma, or something else that they'd told us before. That something else was sarcoma. Obviously then we go to the hospital and they come in with my diagnosis and it's alveolar rhabdomyosarcoma stage 4. We couldn't remember what it was. That is the one that we'd never heard of, that we were just like, it won't be that. Like, how ignorant. We'd never heard of sarcoma, so we were like, well, it won't be that. Like, how actually stupid is that? So obviously when I was diagnosed, it was a massive shock and we were like, what is this? I couldn't even pronounce the word, and I still can't really. So obviously then I saw a sarcoma specialist and she went into the detail of what it was, and I was like, oh my God, there's even a specialist of this. You've been doing this all your life and I've never heard of it. Like, how has that happened? Then I started my treatment. Literally within days I had my ovary removed. I went down to Oxford to have my ovary removed because I didn't have time to freeze my eggs. When I say it's stage 4, that means that it's spread to basically so many different parts of the body. Stage 1 is like localised, just a tumour, you can probably remove it with surgery, and then it just gradually moves up to the stages, and stage 4 is the worst stage because it just means it's basically everywhere or in too many places for it to be safe, basically. I started my treatment in early September and they said to me, it's not that likely I would make it to Christmas. The treatment's 50-50 gonna work, you know, I'm in a really bad place, awful prognosis, people don't survive this, I'm screwed, basically. But I was so poorly, I didn't even know all of this was going on. I just didn't even care. I was asleep for most of the time and it just completely went over my head, and thank God it did, because I don't think I'd want to remember it. So I started on the most brutal chemo drugs that they could possibly come up with. If you want to know how poorly I was, I'd go through to my blog, which I'll link below, and you can read all the treatment I had, all the symptoms, the causes, everything that went on during my treatment. I'm not going to go into detail because it was horrific, and that was for about 6 months. I nearly died a few times. I got sepsis more than 4 times. You know, I had an infection they couldn't control. I had an infection in my PICC line. It was an awful time and I've just never been so poorly. I lost about 10 kilos in weight. I had to have a feeding tube in my stomach because I couldn't eat anything. You know, like, they're just like the main things that were awful, but I'm not going to go into the detail because this video will literally go on for an hour. But yeah, over on my blog I've literally documented it all when it was nearer to the time, so it would probably be more honest and more raw and fresh there anyway, because I just try not to even think about what I went through. So yeah, so then at the end of my treatment, the treatment went well enough to still be alive, obviously. I made it past Christmas. Ooh, that was my goal. And then when my 9 cycles of that had finished, you can't have any more because it would probably killed me. So after that I went on to another type of treatment to stabilise it and just mop up anything that was left. The cancer, we don't know where it started, we don't know the primary source, which obviously puts me in an even worse position because you can't eliminate it from your body. We will never know, unfortunately, which is a massive downfall for me, because if you know where the primary site is, you can remove it and it will never come back in that site, hopefully, whereas mine is still there somewhere, so it will probably just keep coming back. So going on to like general sarcoma awareness, so sarcoma is actually cancer of the bones or in the soft tissue or muscle. There's no evidence that anything in the environment causes it, there's no ways to avoid it, there's nothing like your diet doesn't make you get it, like, there's no reason I got it, basically. It was just an unfortunate mutation in the cell. Anyone can get it, literally anybody. It's mostly common in children and boys under 10, which is really interesting because that's obviously not me. So symptom wise, because this is the biggest question that everybody asks me to answer, what are the symptoms of sarcoma? And it's so hard to tell you, because if you Google it, they're very generic, but I didn't have any of them. And funnily enough, when I was in hospital, one of the doctors brought in like 6 student doctors. They all stood around my bed. They didn't know what cancer I had, and they asked me what were my symptoms, how was I feeling, things like that, like what the GP would have asked on the first day. And I just told them, and they were baffled. They were like, I don't know what this is. How am I supposed to know what this is? All you've got is backache, a spread to your leg, but you don't have any nausea, you don't have any swelling, you don't have any lumps. Like, they were going through all the symptoms of sarcoma that I should typically have, and I was like, no, I literally don't have any of those symptoms. And bearing in mind it was already stage 4, that's just crazy that I didn't have all the massive symptoms. So I was really lucky to get the diagnosis when I did, because if I didn't, I would not have survived, because that would have just killed me. If that had gone on any longer, that would have just been even worse. So early detection is just so important, because anyone can have a good prognosis if they catch it early enough, because things can be done, it can be controlled, you know, it doesn't damage your body, you don't need as much treatment. But once it gets to a stage where it's spreading around your body, that's not something you want to be faced with, because it just makes things so much more complicated. So early detection, you're better to be annoying and go to your doctor and say, look, something's not right, I know it's not right, I know you've done tests and you've said things are right, but you just keep pushing, see somebody else, go privately, you know, do anything you can, speak to other people in that position that you think you might be in, and try and push if you think you should be pushing, because I would never have pushed. Had they've turned me away, I'd have just gone, okay, like, you know what you're talking about. So if that had happened to me, I would literally be dead. So please, all I can stress is early detection is so important, not just with sarcoma anyway, but like every cancer. I didn't realise how significant that part of the diagnosis was. The earlier you catch it, the more options you've got and the more time you've got, basically. Usually the symptoms in general for sarcoma are localised, so wherever your tumour is, that's where you're going to get pain. I get symptoms now actually when it spreads. So when it spreads, I get lumps, and they are really painful lumps. Obviously this is really unpleasant, but it's actually benefited me, because the more pain I get in a lump, the more I'm aware that it's spread. In the early days, I literally had really bad back pain, but it was agony. It wasn't just back pain, it was like something was seriously wrong. And then obviously I had that in my leg as well. And then, yeah, other than that, I think I Googled the symptoms of what you should typically have when I got my diagnosis, and I was like, Mum, I don't think this is right. Like, I haven't got any of these symptoms. And I think it's very unique to each person's type of sarcoma. I think sarcoma does come with a lot of pain. From what I've heard from other people, they've also had pain, or that's how they've picked it up. You're not necessarily unwell. If you ever feel a lump or a tumour or a mass or anything, just get it checked, because they're not normal. You shouldn't have ones. Everybody has lymph nodes, and sometimes you do get a raised lymph node just because you've got an infection or you're not very well, but just get it checked, because if you don't, it's not going to get better anyway. So you may as well get it looked at. And, you know, doctors have this whole reputation of, oh, they just pushed me away. But, you know, find another doctor, find somebody else, because this is their job at the end of the day. They're supposed to detect these things. Please help me help everybody. You know, get the word out there. Just say the word sarcoma and see if who knows it, see who doesn't. You know, just educate. You don't need to know everything about it. I don't know anything about it really, but I only know what I've got. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. Yeah, thank you always to everybody for all their support and just everything everybody always does for me and shares, and it's been unreal these last few months especially. Me and my family, we do really appreciate it. I've blogged about everything already and I've done some YouTube videos, so if there's anything else you want to know, go and look at those, because I've probably covered it somewhere, or just message me, because I didn't want it to go on for too long, because it's literally just me talking, which is quite boring.